In today's weekly news video, we've got some very interesting updates from HGA, SGC, and PSA, so keep an eye out for those. But also, we've got some pretty dodgy things coming from Fanatics, Topps, and their new baseball definitive set. Very, very dodgy. We'll get to that in a second, but let's get started with SGC. So they've basically come out, Peter, their CEO, who you're seeing on the screen right now, and talked about some transparency updates they're making to their graded card process, right? And historically, what would happen is if you got a card graded, and it was determined to be authentic, they would put an A. You'd only see an A on the label, and they'd send you back the card. Now, to give you some context, authentic typically meant that the card has had evidence of color touch-ups, trimming, or some other form of manipulation on the card that has meant that it's not true, or it's not true to what it was originally out of the manufacturer, and that they can't apply a numerical grade. So what Peter does is he talks through what their new authentic process looks like. And what he says is that essentially, they're getting rid of just the A because it doesn't provide any transparency, to the person who submitted the card. But then also, if that card is ever on-sold to someone else, down the line, every single person gets less and less information as to why that card was flagged as being authentic, right? So they're changing things up. They're saying, okay, we're going to say authentic on the label completely. We're not just going to say A, and we're actually going to tell you exactly why it was determined to be authentic. So in this case, they've got an example here of color being added, right? And then if we skip down a bit further, you should see something here around evidence of trimming. So another example there. So that's basically what their labels are going to show moving forward, which is a huge win for us as collectors, right? The more transparency, the better. And what Peter also touches on is that this is the first of many announcements to come. So let's keep an eye out for them. I've always been shocked that this was not something that, card graders did, because I talk about this all the time, that I'm, as big as I am collecting trading cards, I also collect comic books, right? And this is something that CGC have done from comic book collecting and comic book grading, I should say, for a long, long time. They've always had different colored labels to mean different things. You've got qualified labels, and when a label has been qualified, they'd explicitly state on the label, I'm not sure if they still do this to the detail they did in the past, but they would state, where the color touch-up did occur, where the pressing did occur, where the trimming did occur, if their staples removed. They'd have the detail on there, right? So you as a buyer know what's actually happening, and this is a huge win. I hope we see every grader start doing this, because we need more things like this within the hobby. The more transparency, the better, and kudos to SGC, right? Because they keep chugging along, doing the things that they need to be doing, right? It's who's to say whether they're going to actually be number 2, number 1, like Peter touches on in this video. He says he wants to be number 1, whether it actually happens down the line or not, because there's so much love for PSA. But if they keep doing these kinds of things and they keep being there for the collector and keep having the turnaround times that they're having, who's to say they can't be, right? So pretty exciting and something to keep an eye on moving forward. Now we'll touch on to the Topps definitive baseball. Now this is a really expensive box of cards, right? I think they're currently selling for $2,000. And if you weren't aware, these two players, Austin Meadows and Randy, I can't pronounce his last name, sorry, so I do apologize in advance if you are of Hispanic descent. But basically, these two cards very clearly signed not by those players, because people have done comparisons to what those people's autos actually look like, but they're very clearly signed by the same person out at top. So what the heck happened? Did they, where's the question marks, right? So it's really dodgy. I'm not sure if there's any other photos here. You can see what their actual autos look like. They look nothing like the ones in question, right? And lots of people question this, and Topps and Fanatics have come out today and basically said, we're made aware of this. They are fake. They're not their autographs. We don't know what happened. We're looking into this. If you've, ripped this box, you've got that card yourself, they will refund you. So they'll give you a box of the product for free. You better hope you don't get another one of those dual autos. But then also, they'll also give you a replacement card of equal or greater value. So it's pretty interesting. They're blaming it on, I think, COVID protocols. I think it's essentially where it's coming from. Yeah, they are as a result of COVID protocols, which is really dodgy in my opinion. That's not why it's happened, right? So I wouldn't be surprised if the person that certified these cards getting graded either didn't turn up to get the players to sign them, or they stole the cards themselves and they've just put these dodgy ones in. I don't know, right? There's all these questions. But what is known for a fact, right, goes to the things I've spoken about many times in the past, that these manufacturers do not have, examples of player autographs on hand. Okay, how difficult would it have been for Topps and Fanatics to, have someone cite Austin Meadows signing something, having a photo, as an example, putting that into some sort of database, like have a registry. This is my example in the past, right? I've mentioned that they should be having a registry, right? When the person going to pack the product or look at the cards or perform the review to make sure that the auto is matching the player or the sticker auto is matching the player, have a database, have a registry, let them look at it. And then before they stick it on, well, hang on a minute, that doesn't make sense. Why doesn't that make sense? And then they'd inquire and be like, oh, okay, maybe the player changed their order this season. But it's just shocking that this kind of stuff continues to happen. Let alone the price of this box, right? Just the fact that it still happens, because it's just ridiculous. I'm surprised they don't have proper measures in place to make sure this stuff doesn't get picked up, right? And I've talked about how their QC process, the review process, is not just Topps. This is also applicable to Panini and every other card manufacturer and every other card grader. The same sort of issues are arising, right? Have proper controls in place, have proper measures in place to help you identify these things. And then why does this have to get to the hands of the customer for them to determine this is an error, right? The fact that they don't have a registry. A registry, it wouldn't be that difficult, right? You've got all your employees that are looking at this stuff. Just have an app on the phone. They type in the player's name, bang, they can see if the auto matches or not before they put it in the pack or before they put the sticker auto on. Like, how hard is that? I'm shocked that it doesn't occur, right? Because you're talking about huge dollar figures. These mistakes are ridiculous and it's honestly not good enough. Like, it is what it is, right? So let me know your thoughts down in the comments below, because that is a bit of a shit show, to be honest. Now, the next point I want to touch on is PSA basically releasing a new graded service offering right ahead of the National. So looking at $18 a card to get your cards graded. So there is some stipulations on this. This is in addition to their value service that they brought back recently that I've also commented on. It's a limited time only, so you can only get this until 31 July. It's applicable to Collector Club members only 20 card minimum, cards only, so no packs. Declared value of $199 per card. And then they're looking at a 150-day turnaround, which I think is 6 months. So I'm a bit indifferent on this one. You know, I praised them when they brought back their value service offering before they made the minor changes, because I thought it was quite good. I thought it was quite measured in an effort to, you know, try and prevent a backlog and them getting caught up on shit cards again, because obviously so many people sent them crap cards. So a lot of people had some concerns regarding that. This one I'm a little bit more indifferent on, right? It just seems a bit too soon to be trying to do this. And I get the feeling they're going to get a lot of cards. So we could see them, you know, getting stuck in a backlog again. At the end of the day, they're their own business. I like the fact that it is still quite measured, right? I think it's too soon, in my opinion. But it is what it is. I'm not going to hate them for doing it, right? I still like them as a company, so I'm curious to get your thoughts on that down below. I think it would make more sense if this was a month or two later, but given that they're trying to cash in on the National, it is what it is. At the end of the day, it's $199, so not too many cards you expect to come in, right? Because it should only be really PC stuff at that price point anyway. But I'm keen to get your thoughts on that. I'm indifferent. I like it. I don't like it for the same reasons. I just think it's a bit too soon, but it is what it is, right? You can't really hate them for that. The last point I want to touch on from card graders is HGA. Now, I did a video on this the other day, and they've talked about coming back, they're reopening their backlog, right? Or reopening their submission process. So if you weren't aware, basically HGA closed off submissions when the new owners came in because their backlog was way too large and they weren't really getting too many orders in, and they were just basically falling, you know, really far behind, and they weren't being able to keep up with even like small backlog amounts, right? And when the new owners came in, I sort of praised them because I liked their intentions initially, and then they came out and shut down the submission process, which was really, really good of them because it showed, you know, that they had the right intentions in mind, right? They wanted to solve the problem and get back to being a business that's there for collectors, right? And they've had issues in the past. I've called them out for that, but you can't really begrudge them for doing that, right? I know a lot of people hated on them at the time because they were like, well, this is going to be the end of HGA. They're not going to recover. I said that was a bit silly at the time. Looking at it now, would seem to be very smart on their behalf, right? Because they're going to get out of their backlog in the next couple of days. They should be out of their backlog today, actually. But then they've come one step further, right? They've just said, well, hang on a minute. The new owners were like, okay, we've got some issues. We know how to, we want to try and win back some love with the collectors, right? So what we're going to do now moving forward is implement an official customer guarantee. So if you weren't aware of what this basically means, if you send the card in to get graded in any of their day submissions, like 2-day turnaround, 10-day turnaround, 30-day turnaround, whatever, if they don't meet that turnaround time, and it's not as a result of some sort of, you know, environmental impact, some sort of outbreak, anything along those lines, it was something that was within reason, within their control, they will grade your cards for free, they'll mail it to you for free, and they'll refund your money. That's a huge thing for collectors, right? And I think it's going to be really good for them as a business to try and implement that. And like I touched on in my video from the other day, I think we might see some other graders implementing similar things down the line, because I think this is something that should be mandatory, right? Like, well, not mandatory, but it's something that we should expect as customers, right? They should be making these turnaround times. Like, it's just ridiculous what we've gone through over the last couple of years, and I think this is a step in the right direction. Yes, they've had issues, but at the end of the day, they said they'd get through their backlog. They did, and then they got through that, so they kept their word, but then they also came back and said, well, actually, we're going to go one better and do as much as we can for you as customers. Whether this is actually a step in the right direction long-term for them as a business, who knows? This might still be part of their downfall. Again, who knows? But you can't really begrudge them for implementing this, and I think it should help them win back some love from the collectors, right? So let me know your thoughts down in the comments below, and any of the points we've discussed today. Like I said, you know, the big one is this Topps definitive thing. The fact that you can have a product be that expensive and have this kind of error in it is utterly ridiculous. I think It's just crazy. And if I was a person that got one of those cards, I would not give the card back to try and get that free box and get a replacement value. I'd keep the card because that's going to be worth something one day. We've seen that with some of the other auto errors out of Panini and things like that in the past. But yeah, please share your thoughts down in the comments below. Really keen to have a chat with you. Let me know your thoughts on any of the items, whether you're still going to grade with HGA if you have in the past, what your thoughts are on that, all the items. I'm talking in circles now. I hope you liked the video. As always, thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one. Cheers.